Welcome to Hard Questions, where we gather pastors together and take on the tough issues of the day, finding the answers right out of the Bible. I'm the moderator of this pack, and on today's panel are
Dr. William R. Glaze, Bethany Baptist Church in Pittsburgh.
Chris Gibbs, pastor at Crossway Church in the Mars area.
Pete Giacalone, Rainbow Temple Assembly of God Church, McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
J. Anthony Gilbert, Kingdom Restoration Christian Center, Mount Washington.
Pastors, are you ready?
We are ready.
We're going someplace far away, and this will. Or are we? Or are we
The kingdom
today?
of heaven is within.
That's right, brother. Today we're on a topic that I really love. You love it too. You just don't know what it is yet. I'm going to tell you. We're going to talk about heaven. Oh, here's the question. As we deal with heaven, what will we be like? This is up for grabs. What will we be like in heaven?
Well, you know, you're starting off, and you're talking about as far as our bodies are concerned.
Yeah, us, me, you, and what form will we have?
Well, I believe that we'll have a body because, you know, the scripture says that, you know, our bodies will be resurrected and transformed. So, you know, we'll have a body, but it won't be a body that's prone to disease or sin or sickness. You know, it'll be, the Bible talks about a glorious body fashioned unto the body of Christ.
And we'll be ageless. Ageless, you know, because it's going to be a body because we're going to be with him forever and ever and ever. And then adds a couple more forever evers at the end. So it'd be an ageless body.
Which I guess is really interesting when you bring up the question, how old will you be? You know, what kind of an age will you be in there? You know, one thing that I like about the 1 Corinthians 15, there's a couple verses, 36 says, what a foolish question. When somebody asks, how will the dead be raised? What kind of bodies will we have? Foolish question is the immediate response. And then it goes on in verse 38, it says, then God gives it the new body he wants it to have. Right. So the idea of a seed being planted, you have no control over that anymore. It dies and it resurrects. And so some people have said it's kind of a fast forward to an ideal age or a rewind for old people, that there's not necessarily going to be little infants or whatever, but like this ideal age, whatever that is.
And some have even said age 33 because of the age in which Christ, and we can't prove that, but a perfect age.
You know, I'm going to go a different spin. I don't think there'll be really any age because age deals with time, and anytime you deal with time, time deals with decay. So whenever you're dealing in linear terms, you've got time, which means there's sin involved. Right. God never created man to die. So I believe that we'll look like Adam was, because that was his original intent. Yeah. So, I mean, not that we're going to be babies, but I think we're looking at it from a point of linear versus eternity, you know. And so in eternity as well, the Bible says, corruptible, put on incorruptible. Yeah, right. We're going to put on celestial bodies. Right. And I believe in that there won't be any age like 33 or 20 or 15. Right, right.
Well, I was going to say, and Adam was created to live forever.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and death entered into his body, you know, after he, you know, committed the sin. And then, you know, because God said the day that you eat the fruit, you shall surely die. Yeah. Well, you know, he didn't kill over and die. You know, he kept on living. But what happened was that death entered into his body.
Right. Time began. That's why when I think of the idea of ideal age, it's kind of like agelessness, that timelessness, because once sin entered, time began. But when sin is no more, death is no more, there is no linear time, because eternity is what takes back over in the way we were created.
And you don't know how long Adam, quote unquote, lived before he sinned.
No, right. It doesn't say.
It could have been 10,000 years.
We don't know.
We don't know. So that's where, like you said, we said, time began.
Well, I don't know. Time began when Adam was created, but that was in the sixth day. If we're going to be looking at the days, if the morning and the night and the day was day one, so that gives me some recollection of time in terms of pre-Adam, before Adam was ever created.
I guess what I would say when time is the countdown began, because there was never a countdown on existence at all. But when Adam sinned, when Adam and Eve sinned, the countdown began. Time in the sense of what we understand, because eternity, even though there were 6 days and a seventh for rest, it was still in the measure of eternity, not in the measure of beginning and ending as the way we understand beginning and end.
Well, would be safe then to say that Adam was created in full maturity?
Right.
That'd be safe, right?
Most definitely.
He was created in full maturity, and he was created from the dust of the earth.
Right.
So then, if we're going to project what our body is going to be like when we go back into that when we go to be with the Lord, would it be safe to say we'll be at full maturity?
Exactly.
Of course.
Yeah,
Ageless.
So even a baby that dies,
Yes.
you know, that baby in heaven will be fully mature.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, on this earth, you know, they didn't grow into a point where they ever became a full mature adult. In eternity, you know, they will be that full mature individual.
You know what? That encourages me so much about all the babies that have been aborted. You know, how many? 16 million, something like that, some number like that, are all in heaven,
Amen.
fully
Full
matured. And that's such an encouragement to think that those lives aren't gone.
And Don, when you said just a minute ago being returned to the substance of which we were created, here's something that I did some recent study on, and I love this. Adam was created from the dirt, and a lot of times we use that to say, oh, you're nothing but just, you're created from dirt. Don't think of yourself too high. But you realize dirt right now is a result of decay, right? The dirt outside is a result of decay and dead things. There was no death and decay. That was the most perfect, valuable substance. God created something out of his image with the most valuable, that was some dirt. That dirt was more pure than the gold that we have today. That was, so to return back to that substance, if heaven is going to be a recreation, if you will, or restoration of the garden, you'll be returned to a substance that was purer than the gold.
Perfection. Because remember, God said, it was all good. So for God to declare it good, you know, for God to sit back and say, hey, you know what?
Right.
I did pretty good.
Well, you know, and up until that point, you know, as you said, the earth was perfect. You know, it didn't become cursed until after the fall. Because, you know, after the fall, God said, you know, now it will yield thorns and thistles.
Yes.
But before that, you know, it was just a rich, fertile a substance that, you know, God reached down into the dust and created Adam from. So it was
all good.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah.
And if you also think about, you know, if you want to talk about the trichotomy of man, you know, when God created man in Genesis 1:26, he wasn't talking about the body. In my opinion, I believe he was talking about the spirit of the man, because he said, let us make man in our image. And then he formed man, verses later, out of the dust of the ground. And then when the spirit and the body came together, man became a living soul. So I believe when we're talking about also, like, what are we going to be like? What age are we going to be? That's the image that we're really talking about. So like with babies and all that, that's the image, is that spirit that man was created to be.
Verse 31, chapter 1, Genesis. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good.
Very good.
Well, let's stay there. So it was very good. Heaven was this ideal place for Adam and Eve to be, and for God to be in relationship and fellowship with them. Everything was provided for them. They had work to do. They weren't there without an assignment. They had an assignment, but then they chose to sin. Both for different reasons, but they chose to sin. Even you could go up to where sin originated with Lucifer, in that place. That wasn't the Garden of Eden, but in heaven itself, Lucifer chose to sin. Will sin be an option in the new heaven and new earth?
You know, I'm going to say no, because, and I'm going to use Revelation chapter 20 and verse 6. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. In other words, you make the first resurrection, you're in. And you know, and I don't mean to say that like you're working in your salvation. And the point is, you won't have that. Matter of fact, you won't want that opportunity to sin, because we shall be like him.
Yep.
Well, you know, I was going to say that in Revelation 22, where it talks about the new heaven and new earth.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it says that the defiled, the whoremongers, and there's a whole list of sinners, and it says that they are going to be outside of the kingdom, which, you know, I would take that to mean they will be, you know, dealing with their eternal punishment. But the scripture is very clear that any type of sinner will be outside of the kingdom.
Yeah, and Don, one of the questions we got to look at is, you know, will there be, you know, is it impossible for me to sin in heaven? Somebody may say, well, if you say no, well, look back, and if Lucifer and the whole angels were there and they sinned, then what makes it different that I will be unable to sin there? And I agree 100%, but I think you got to look at that question. And the fact is when they sinned, they made a choice in eternity. and that choice was guaranteed right then and there. No chance of restoration. The choices that we have made in the temporal existence, God already made a plan, and because we know that, say in 1 Corinthians 15:26, the last enemy to be destroyed is death. The wages of sin is death. Death is going to be thrown into hell, or the lake of fire. Well, now we are living in an eternity where sin is not possible because the choice has already been made.
Right.
And Satan was the one that brought sin into the earth.
Right.
So one of the things it says in Revelation that Satan and all them will be bound. And then it says in Revelation 21 in verse number 4, and God will wipe away every tear from the eyes, and there shall be no more death. So if there can be no more death, there can be no more sin.
That's
Perfect.
There cannot
Perfect.
be.
It can be.
And you can hang your hat on that one.
Yeah, and I was going to say, even our nature, will not have a propensity to sin.
That's it.
It will not even be in our nature to want
Which
to
goes
sin.
back to what Jay said, that when man was created, it wasn't just that physical self, it was the spirit within him, because this body is going to be gone. And all we're going to be is the new body, is that resurrected body, which will not have that because choice has been made, death has been defeated, sin is
And
broken.
going back to what you just said, Chris, choice. Man was given a choice because God warned Adam and Eve. He said, the day you eat of this, you shall surely die. Therefore, that choice, that equation is taken out of the picture now because there won't ever be death ever again.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Makes you want to
Shout
speak in
right there.
tongues.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Makes you want to. Pastor Chris, your point is a very strong point for eternal security. I want to remind you of that. So I want to go forward.
I believe in the security of the believer.
Let's not. We're not in heaven. In heaven, that will not even be an issue.
Amen.
So don't go away. We're going to come back. There's all kinds of questions, all kinds of things about heaven that I have. So we're going to come back, dig back in. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking about heaven. And we're talking about some interesting facts about heaven. And Pastor, you said something that really stuck with me. Repeat that about Lucifer.
Well, when Satan came into the earth, he now tempted man, and sin came into the planet. Well, now that we've been redeemed and we've been bought back after Christ fulfills all things, he's going to be bound forever and thrown into hell. And as a result, as I was reading in Revelation 21:3, that there'll be no more crying, there'll be no more death. So as a result of there not being any death, there cannot be sin, because the wages of sin is death. So once the devil was bound up, and once he's cast away, we are forever free. And that's what, as you said, heaven will be like.
Yeah, that's good.
Timeless, ageless, forever.
Amen.
Now,
With not even the idea of sin.
Look, fatless, baldless.
Ooh.
Hallelujah.
I'll even get a couple inches. Won't have to dye my hair no more.
All I can say is full maturity.
You mean I have to grow
Full,
up?
no, brother. I'm not saying anything other than full maturity. But now, wait a minute.
Okay.
We're talking about heaven, which is distinctive from the millennial reign of Christ.
Correct.
Right.
Can we make that clear?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Because what we're referring to here,
millennium.
because the millennial reign of Christ, and then Lucifer, Satan, is unleashed at the end of that
Right.
period, and sin abounds once again.
Right.
And we're not going to go into that deep conversation, but are we describing what we believe is going to be the millennial reign of Christ, and what's going to happen after that with heaven?
Well, I believe that during the millennial reign, I think that, people that come out of the tribulation will continue to have children. And that when Satan is loosed at the end, and tempts those individuals, those are the individuals that's going to be tempted. We as believers, we once we enter into that millennial kingdom as a believer in Christ, I believe that our salvation is secured. But there will be individuals that are born during the millennium that will have to make that choice. And it's amazing to think that after 1,000 years with Christ reigning on the throne, and some people will obey just outwardly, but will not submit in their heart.
Well, maybe you can make it clear for some folks that are new to the word. There's going to be people who survive the tribulation
Right.
that aren't Christians.
Exactly.
That's who you're referring to.
Living through the
They
tribulation.
live through the tribulation.
Right.
And then they enter right into the millennial reign of Christ as subjects to the kingdom of God.
Right. But they
they'll be
they
tempted.
won't have a heart transformation.
Right.
Christ is going to rule and reign with a rod of iron, and so people will fall in the line just because Christ is on the throne. But at the end of the millennium, when given a choice, when Satan, and this goes back to our conversation earlier, when Satan is turned loose, here again, we see the tempter coming back. And when the tempter comes back, all those people that have not submitted in their heart to Christ, will go after him, and he will deceive them.
Well, let me ask you this now. I'm not just going to go to Dr. Glaze because he's the walking kingdom encyclopedia, but in that millennial reign, those folks who survived the tribulation, comes on into the kingdom, are ruled and reigned. That's what the Bible says. We're going to rule and reign with Christ. That's part of who we're going to rule and reign over. Will they live a normal cycle of life? Will they birth and die, or are they going to have eternal life or continuous life? Or do you have any idea?
Yeah, I would say that they would live for the 1,000 years.
Right. So they're not going to die at 80 or 100 years old.
Yeah, because as you look at Isaiah and he talks about the millennial kingdom, it seems that he's giving indication that there's no death during that time.
So no matter who you are, whether you're a saint or an ain't.
Right.
And if you think about that too, God would be just. He would be unjust if somebody allowed them to live that whole time with Christ and not have the tempter, but let everybody else be that way.
Yeah.
So those that live through that time, Satan will come back out to see where are you really at. Yeah. Everybody is going to have to deal with the God of this world and choose their faith over Christ.
That was what I was going to say.
Question, Don? If a person would go to Revelation chapter 20, verses 8 through 15, it kind of gives you a real good timeline there, that after the 1,000 years is over, then it says the sea gave up the dead, were in it, and death and Hades delivered up to dead who were in them, and they were judged each according to the works. Then death and Hades were cast in the lake of fire.
Yeah.
This is the second death, and anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
Okay, so
This is after the millennium.
after millennial reign. So let's go back into millennial. So we go to be with the Lord. He comes back, sets up his kingdom on this earth. What is the role of his children? Is there going to be rewards for his children for obedience in this life, in this natural, temporal life? Is that the word
The
you
Bible
use?
says we're going to reign and rule with him. So there is going to be different levels of rewards. There's going to be different leadership, if I can put it that way. And then again, you can see that in the gifts of the talents, where Christ was trying to show them that, though I'm not going to be compared to Dr. Glaze, and I thank God for that. No, I mean that in respect to you. No, I'm serious. So, but I'll be rewarded to the talents that God gave me if I were faithful in my talents. So I'm not going to be compared to Billy Graham, anybody else, just me.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, Don, and I preach this all the time. What we do down here matters.
It does matter.
And people, we need to realize that what we do here matters. And I think that, even our level of responsibility in the kingdom will be based on, our faithfulness to Christ now.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think we got to look too is this idea of rewards. These are not material type rewards. These are not anything that reflects on myself. Every reward is what is going to be, basically is going to reflect back to him. It's going to give him honor and glory. It's like I read one time, there is the idea of a trophy, and a kid that wins a trophy isn't always, oh, that's my trophy. It's remembering, wow, this is how we got that trophy. Yeah. It's the memory of that. And I don't want to say that it's all about memory, but everything that I do is to reflect the glory of God. It's not going to be something that compares me to somebody else, but it's going to be to say, hey, this represents my relationship. It reflects the sonship that we've been called to have.
And also there's there's the great white throne judgment.
Correct.
And there's the judgment seat of Christ. Notice it's not a throne, because the people that come to the great white throne judgment haven't bowed the knee yet. So that's where the unbelievers are judged at the great white throne, because they will bow the knee. But the judgment seat of Christ is the place where the believers are judged according to how they lived with what Christ gave them. There are two questions God's like, what did you do with my son?
One is rewards, as you said, and one is...
Well, the other interesting thing in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, where, we might think that, we're doing great things for the Lord. But Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3 that your works will be tried by fire. That's right. And if your works are made of wood, hay, or stubble, that they'll burn up. Yeah. But if they're made of gold, silver, precious stone, that they'll go through the fire and that you will receive a reward for it.
And Jesus also said in a parable that there will be many that will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we prophesy? We spoke it, we healed, we did all of this. He said, and I will say, depart from me, I never knew you. And that word know is a Greek word ginosko, which is actually a Jewish idiom for sexual intercourse. It's this idea of intimacy. You didn't have intimacy with me. Those rewards are going to be based on what was the integrity and the authenticity of your intimacy with God.
I heard somebody say this one time, that when some Christians stand before the judgment seat of Christ, that and their works are tried, they're going to say, blowing the smoke away, Jesus, I don't see you over there.
And going back to about the idea of rewards and reigning, I think we'll come to such a maturity that if you're king of a whole area, I will be rejoicing in your reward with you. You know what I mean? So it's not the idea of competition. It's not the idea, oh, look, Dr. Glaze is driving this and I'm driving, you know. It's the idea that we all, as you said, Chris, we all won together.
You know, the Lord gave me an illustration. My son is in the military, and he graduated from officer school. And, you know, he graduated #1 in his class. There was 80-some in physical fitness, #1 in strategic planning, and #3 in, you know, relationship. And he came across, and there's all these, you know, Army guys in there, generals and everybody else. And when he was walking across there, you know, I was like, that's my son.
Yeah.
And I almost started crying. You know, it just moved me that much. And I think heaven is going to be like that. You know, we're not going to be jealous. I wasn't jealous of him.
No.
You know, I said, man, I should have been the one getting those rewards. You know, I wasn't jealous. I was like, man, you know, that's my son.
Yeah.
And I was happy. And I think that when we, in heaven, there's not going to be any jealousy or any envy. And we're going to be happy for everybody, what they get. You know, I'm gonna be excited for what Chris gets and you know, what Jay gets.
If we could learn to live like that right now, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, I think we'd find ourselves in a lot better place here. We can practice here what we're going to enjoy there.
You know, brother, that's such a good word, because heaven, if we went to heaven right now, we'd be shocked.
Yeah, we would.
You know, if the millennial happened right now, millennial reign started right now, we'd be shocked. But I don't think that's God's will. I think we walk in it. We should be able to take the next step in our lives would be the step into that realm. It shouldn't be a cold, rainy day. You're just walking into the sunlight, from the sunlight into the sunlight. Hey, I love this topic. I love to talk about heaven. You know why? Because it's promised to you and me.
Amen.
If you have Jesus in your heart, this is your promise. You hold on to it. Look up. The word says your redemption draws nigh. We'll be back right after this. Wonderful discussion about heaven. Always close the program with a scripture. Today, let's go look at what Philippians 3 says. In the 20th verse says, our citizenship is in heaven, from which we also eagerly await for the Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ, who will transform our lowly body that it may be conformed to his glorious body, according to the working by which he is able even to subdue all things to himself. He is able to subdue all things to himself. We got to remember that God is God. God is God. A real quick part, just our little rapid fire. How close are we to heaven, Pastor?
Kingdom of heaven is within.
Kingdom of heaven is within us.
It depends on if I'm going to text and drive on the way home.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, here on, you know, your kingdom come, will be done.
Again, the idea that as we worship God, God inhabits, and that word inhabits means his throne room. So once we start worshiping God, and if we live in worship, we are inhabited in the presence of God right now, right here.
That's good.
Not like we would see one day.
The Winan said it best. If the question is when Christ is coming, he said it's going to be real soon.
Real soon. Oh, and Andre said,
Soon and very soon.
Soon and very soon.
very soon.
Amen.
He's coming. The King is coming.
Yes, he is.
My answer to that is we're one breath away from heaven.
Always.
We're one breath away from heaven. Either him coming or us going. Be ready. I hope you enjoyed this issue of hard questions. Send us your hard questions at the phone number. Call the phone number on the screen. We love you, and we'll see you on our next Hard Questions program.